Good evening, everyone. I'm Jim Carl. I am the Senior Director of Film for the Carolina Theater of Durham, as well as part of the programming team for the OutSouth Queer Film Festival. And I have the pleasure tonight of introducing tonight's conversation with two of the artists from this year's selections. Those are Mom and M, a documentary that we also programmed, with Adam, which is a film from London that we absolutely fell in love with. So let's get started and bring people into the chat, and let's find out a little bit about our filmmakers this evening, starting with Jenna Burchick. Jenna.
Hi.
Hey, it's good to see you.
It's good to see you too. Thank you for having me.
Where are you joining us from tonight?
I'm joining you from Baltimore, Maryland, from my office.
It's good to see you. Thank you so much. Let's talk a little bit about you, Jenna. You're an Emmy Award-winning filmmaker. You're the assistant professor in electronic media and film department at the Towson University. You're an IATSE 487 studio mechanic.
Yes.
What's that? That's interesting. What is an IATSE 487 studio mechanic?
So I'm a union woman. And so I actually got my start in the film industry doing grip and electric work, climbing my way up the ladder, working on big episodics, Netflix series like
Wow.
House of Cards, and TV shows and movies in the area, then working as a gaffer before answering what I feel was my true mission with filmmaking, which is becoming a documentarian, a documentary filmmaker, and a professor.
I could only imagine that kind of a background really helped when you're making your own film.
Oh, absolutely. It is so helpful to understand how to use natural lighting when you are doing a one-woman band production, as I did with Mom and M, and being on huge shows with huge budgets. It really helps you be able to understand how you can then strip it down and work with incredibly limited resources, on top of having some of the best mentors I could ask for here in Baltimore that helped raise me right.
Was House of Cards that was shot? Was that shot in Baltimore?
It was, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was shot in Baltimore for the entire duration of the series. I came on in season 2 and stayed on through the end, and all of my big brothers came from that show. I only worked with one other female the entire time that I worked on the show. So finding mentors that looked like me was a huge challenge, which really helped empower who I am now as a professor in this idea of if you can see it, you can be it. So.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what you just mentioned, which is being a professor. So you received your bachelor's in electronic media and film from Towson University.
Yeah.
And your MFA in film from Vermont College of Fine Arts.
Yes, correct.
So your current research is focused in documentary and documentary narrative filmmaking. And according to what I'm seeing here, your films explore the complexities of family dynamics and community relationships while investigating themes related to gender, sexuality, trauma, and marginalization. So tell us about yourself as a professor. Why as a person who's viewing your film as an audience member, I would imagine, you're out there like Indiana Jones shooting documentary films, guerrilla style.
Sure.
Sexuality, you're also that Indiana Jones documentary filmmaker that's back at the classroom teaching things to students.
Yeah.
A little bit about that, how that happened.
Well, it's just a really incredible relationship. My students, it sounds corny, but my students inspire everything that I do.
Yeah.
I could have had a crew for this film, and I mean, it was twofold. I'll get into one reason a little later, which is about respect and trust and access with your participants. But the other reason was if I took on each role, and things I was rusty at, like editing, for example. Before this film, I edited this feature, and before that, the last thing I'd edited was a wedding video 10 years ago. You know, you become a better teacher by being a doer. I really, truly believe that. And so the places where I felt like I could become stronger for my students were things that I focused on in my practice.
So what do you teach? You know, if I were to take your class, what would I be seeing? What do you teach? Filmmaking, editing?
Sure. I teach a lot of different things. I started as an adjunct 6 years ago, and I got in by being a professor for lighting because that's what I was doing. But now I feel incredibly fortunate that I'm a tenure track assistant professor at Towson, and I teach intermediate filmmaking. I teach advanced filmmaking to all of the graduates. And then I designed and teach a course called Real World, REEL, about career prep. So I teach them what unions are, what freelancing is like, how to get your foot in the door, how to survive your first day on set. Things that I wish I would have had access to when I was 18 to 21 years old are the things that I really love to bring into the classroom.
So it sounds as if I were a student taking your classes, it's more film production than film theory.
It's a bit of both. Yeah, it's a mix. It's like learning the theory and then taking that theory and putting it hands-on into practice. And then hopefully as I continue on, I'm still young in my career in academia, I'll be teaching documentary filmmaking as well, which is where my passion really lies now.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. And I'm sure we'll have a lot more to ask you as we move on.
Sure.
For the moment, I'd like to also bring into the conversation Adam Kashmiri. So, Adam. Hi.
Hi, how are you doing? Hey, Jim. Hi,
Hi.
Thanks for having me. That's really cool of you. How are you doing?
Where are you joining us? And let the audience know what time it is right now for you.
Right. So I think it's a little after 12, and it's from Glasgow, Scotland.
Well, thank you. Thank you for staying up so late. I'm sure you must be exhausted. Did you have to work today?
It's cool. Sorry?
Did you work today? Have you been working all day?
No, I'm actually off. I have been off for
That's good.
10 days now, which is really, really awesome. I've really enjoyed it. So yeah, no, cool.
Well, wonderful. So let's talk a little bit about you, Adam. You were born in Alexandria, Egypt. You went to the UK in 2010, and of course, now you live in Glasgow. And in 2012, you performed in the Citizens Theatre Community Company and Scottish Refugee Council's production of Here We Stay.
Absolutely.
So, if I were to talk a little bit about your past, why Egypt to the UK? I know that part of that is, we see that in the film, obviously, in Adam, but I'm wondering how much of what we saw in the movie is real versus how much of it was just created for the film.
No, it's pretty much very close to the film, I think. Yeah, I mean, it was a time of need, and it was a time of short options, and a time of pals throwing things at you. And the UK was one of those things that my pal that had one of my pals used to go to London every year for a visit, and he was like, try just a visit for London, just go for a visit. I didn't really have a plan. I didn't even know anything about the asylum system at the time. I was politically very ignorant, actually. And when I applied, I got it, and I was surprised I got it, actually, if I'm honest with you. But yeah, that's how it happened. And then I became homeless in London, and then I was gonna be sent back. And then someone advised me to go to the Home Office when I was homeless in London, and that's how my journey began. I went to the Home Office. I told them about everything. They took me to a detention center, but then a month after that, I went to Scotland. And this is kind of how, like, what you see in the film, the asylum process, and how, how my case kind of starts. um yeah, I'm not sure what else, but
Well, out of curiosity, how do you go from being homeless to
mhm.
appearing in short films like Time for TEA by the LGBT Youth of Scotland and films like Everyman? How does that happen?
Took a lot of time, a lot of work, and a lot of luck, I guess, as well.
Yeah.
I have been very lucky in my life. But it all started in 2012 when when I volunteered in this hero stay that you spoke about earlier. That was a collaboration between the Citizens Theatre, which we have here in Glasgow, and Scottish Refugee Council, which is an organisation to help refugees and asylum seekers. And yeah, we came together. We were all like a bunch of Scottish people, asylum seekers and refugees. We came together. We didn't really have a story. Everything was created raw from everyone's stories. And yeah, and I wasn't even gonna perform. I've never performed in my life, so that was kind of scary. And I just came out of my isolation for 2 years, so you can imagine I wasn't really speaking a lot at the beginning. I was very silent. But near the end, actually, maybe 3 weeks before the production happened, I spoke and I told everyone's story. And the director, Ellie Goodman, was like, and also Neil as well. They were like, "Yo, you gotta tell it. You gotta." So I wrote like a very short monologue, about 4 or 5 minutes, and I performed it. It was like so sweet. It was like community theater, like a small room, and everyone is gathered. I was terrified. Literally, I thought I was gonna have a heart attack before I got in. But I went on. I said my wee monologue, and to my amazement, people were really connecting with my story, which is something I never thought would happen. Not just connecting to my identity as being a trans person, but also like to leaving home and displacement and family relationships. It's everything. You know what I mean? Not everything as in like I'm everything, didn't mean it that way, but I mean like in humans we relate to each other, and that always surprises me. Like, when you think we're so different, yet we do really. Anyway, I'm gonna go on a rant here. Anyway,
No,
so to keep going, that's what Cora Bissett saw me, but not to go on a rant. But Cora Bissett is the director of Adam, and that's when she saw me. It was back in 2012, performing that very short monologue. And this is how kind of my journey started to get to answering your question. But yeah.
So you're also a trans activist. Tell us a little bit about what your activities are, and what is that like these days in Glasgow, being a trans activist as well as being a performer?
I kind of started my activism maybe back in 2013 by volunteering to create a group which is called LGBT Unity Scotland, which we have here. I'm no longer part of that group, but I was part of a group that created it, and that was created to take care of asylum seekers and queer asylum seekers and refugees that arrive here in Scotland, because at the time there was no real support dedicated for queer asylum seekers. There was perfect support for asylum seekers alone, but not, and queer people, but not other queer asylum seekers. So yeah, and that was part of my work for a little bit, and we aim to help people in social aspects, so we can isolation. We can help. We also had like a lawyer, person with lawyer background, which helped with political cases. Yeah, we were providing support in many ways, and I really enjoyed my time there. But I stopped volunteering there after 3 years, as in my life was quite full on. I came here, my language wasn't very strong. My education, I left very young. I didn't, as I didn't have a body, I didn't have anything at all. So I was building myself from zero. So at some point, I stopped volunteering altogether and just focused on myself for a while. But now my activism, I do activism through my work, through things like talking about trans issues and talking about transition, talking about sexual health and sexual trans health, and on YouTube, and just these things to me are activism. But I do it through my writing work, or films or video, or I don't know, even dance sometimes. So yeah, kind of political through art. Not. I'm not going into any. I don't think I'm that person anymore.
I think it's amazing that from where you started, you also ended up as on the short list for Amnesty International Award for Free Speech. I mean, that's just
that was really humbling. If I'm honest with you, that was incredible, and we were very, very lucky to receive like some awards. Like, yeah, incredibly humbling. Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead now and bring together our two filmmakers, bringing back Jenna and Adam. It's good to see again both of you guys. And as I mentioned,
by you. Oh my God, just hearing about your work and education and everything that you do, that's quite amazing, if I'm honest.
I don't even
want to go follow you after this. I'll track you down, and like in a creepy way, like not just that came out wrong there.
I have so many questions for you after viewing like your beautiful film. I don't even want to talk about my.
You're amazing! Thank you. Oh, this is
so
amazing.
Moving. You're so brave. I mean, you're so absolutely incredible. So it's a privilege to meet you and get to share the virtual space with you.
Thank you so much. The privilege is all mine. You're amazing. Thank you.
So both of you, again, this is just a conversation. We are all just together to talk about these films, but feel free if you have questions for each other to speak out. I mean, don't wait for me to lead you. But before you do that, let's bring in our other moderator, Monique Velasquez. And Monique is also a member of the OutSouth Programming Committee. She is the chair of programming. And Monique is going to come in with more specific questions, I suppose, about each of your films. And I am going to be stepping out. And I just wanted to say to each of you, thank you so much for sharing your work with OutSouth this year. It's brilliant. We are so appreciative of all the things that you do as performers, writers, editors, cinematographers, all the things that you have to do to make a movie. Because if it weren't for you guys, we would not have a festival.
Well, thank you for giving us a platform, because if it doesn't reach audiences, you know, we need you. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to say goodbye. And again, thank you so much. And I am now handing it over to Monique.
Hi, Jim. So grateful that you found OutSouth. So I'm going to just start with some simple softball things. So Jenna, you probably had more auteur, you had more control over what's happening with your film. How did you find OutSouth, and why did you select OutSouth as a place to submit?
Sure. So I really care about the term safe space in my classroom, in my art, and in the dissemination of my work. And so this is my first feature-length film, and I wanted to find incredibly safe spaces to share this story. It's about a real family, and they invited me into what I consider their sacred living room. And so I was specifically initially looking for queer and queer ally friendly spaces to submit the film. We weren't sure at first if the Richard family were going to join me on the Q&A circuit or not. And I knew that queer audiences would give them the warmest welcome and just a beautiful level of understanding. And so that's how I came across OutSouth. And I love what you do. And I'm so excited to be a part of the festival and to view the programming. So far, I've only had the pleasure of seeing Adam, but I was in tears all morning. So, and I can't wait to watch it again, honestly. So, yeah.
Well, thank you, Jenna. So, Adam, I'm not really sure how much you have to do with the submissions. How did you find out about being submitted and being accepted to OutSouth if you didn't pick us?
Well, the best way to really to kind of describe this is through National Theatre of Scotland, because National Theatre of Scotland and is the producer of Adam, and I guess is the team of National Theatre that have submitted to OutSouth, and through them I've learned about this. So yeah.
Excellent. Well, you know, we kind of follow where the wind blows us sometimes. So what I like about this pairing is a little bit different because we were putting some feature filmmakers together for doing a Q&A. And for the folks out there that haven't seen Adam or Mom and M, it's hard to you know, not see a connection between the two once you've seen them. You know, Adam is it is a documentation. It is a representation of your story, and where Mom and M is a full-blown sort of documentary, very traditional documentary style. So, you know, we had a question pop up that asked, how did you find the family for Mom and M, Jenna? So let's talk about that as a documentarian. How did you find, how do you pronounce it, Richard?
Richard, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll try to do the shorter version of this. But essentially, I was teaching a student who was not yet out as trans and presenting female, and I was teaching a very male-dominated class. And when I get a female really interested in the content, I kind of take them under my wing and get really excited to mentor them because, as I said previously, you know, everyone wants to find a mentor that looks like you. And so at the time, I thought I had this, you know, this student that I could really help navigate the world with. And it turned out to be the opposite, where they helped open up my eyes to a whole new world where they were really struggling, incredibly depressed. And I thought ignorantly at the time, without having the language, that they were just scared to graduate. Long story short, they graduated, and over time I saw their pronouns change, and I kept in touch with them, and I watched them just blossom into this incredibly beautiful person, passionate person, driven person. And it made me realize that, you know, I've been an activist for a while. I've worked for the Human Rights Campaign. I've done a lot of content with, you know, supporting gay marriage. But in terms of the trans and non-binary community, as a cis person, I felt like I wasn't being the type of activist I wanted to be, in terms of I was just like donating money. And when you have a skill and you can put that skill into work of your activism, you know, that was something I really meditated on for a long time. It was playing between, if I'm a cis person, can I tell this story? Should I tell this story? And if I am going to go into this story and represent the trans community, how am I going to do it? So it started with a lot of research. So I knew what I was doing. I will never know what it feels like to be a trans person, but I definitely spoke to every trans person that I could, wonderful person in Baltimore who happened to be trans, that I could talk to. And it was going to be an exploratory short film about incredible artists in Baltimore who happened to be trans. And I kind of looked at it as this incredible privilege to be an explorer on a way to becoming a more informed ally. And then through that process, being a true millennial, I was looking for people on Instagram because, you know, it's a really great way to connect. And Elise in the family, she's a social media influencer, and a friend turned me on to her. And once I saw her and Nikki and Sansa, you know, they really put their lives out on the internet, I was able to learn quite a bit about them and thought, I need to meet this family, and they can be part of my little tiny short film. And so I met Nikki first, and we had a coffee that turned into 3 hours of us completely letting our guards down and talking about what it's like to want to be chosen. And even though I'm not a trans person, and again, I will never understand that experience, my lived experience with a little bit of a rough upbringing was a lot about wanting to feel chosen and wanting to feel loved. And so I just felt this trust in this relationship and this access. And I wanted to explore that. And as soon as they invited me into their space, into their living room, and I filmed with them one time, I left and I thought, they cannot be 2 minutes of a short film. And it doesn't discredit any of the other beautiful trans folks who were going to be part of my short film. It just meant that I needed to follow my gut, and I wanted the world to be able to see Elise's story, Nikki's story, and Sansa's story.
Well, I have to say that I really appreciated the fact that watching, we see a lot of documentaries come through about the trans community, and it's usually has a different perspective. And this perspective, you can tell, wasn't exactly immersive from the trans person's perspective, but it was actually done with a lot of dignity. And well, it's like there wasn't this, what do we call, like, I want to call it ghetto porn, but that's not really what it is. It's this idea that you're doing it for purient curiosity's sake.
Yeah.
And I think that is a testament to you and where you put the camera and how you put the story together, so that it was respectful and it wasn't purient or, salacious in any sort of way for the audience. So that was nice.
I appreciate that means a lot. I appreciate that. And I use the term extract. I never wanted to extract from this family. I wanted it to be their story, and I wanted to have an engagement of co-collaborative filmmaking as much as I could, which is why their home movies are in the film, while their childhood movies are in the film, because I wasn't behind the camera making those decisions. Those decisions happened organically by their choice. And then in addition to that, I waited almost a full year before I ever formally interviewed them, which totally breaks every rule of making a documentary. You typically interview first, you write a script, you get money to make the film. But I thought if I came in with my cis perspective and I sat down, it was going to turn into like a Katie Couric 2020 situation where I'm going to ask them really inappropriate questions based on my own ignorance. And instead, I thought, I'm just going to be a fly on the wall until I feel like we have a real relationship. And then I'm going to form questions based on that relationship. And then I'm going to interview them. So I had 300 hours of footage for a 60-minute film.
Yes, we like that. What is that? 3 to 6 to 1. I don't know. But conversely, Adam, this is super personal. I really, I don't know how you collaborated on the script writing or the storytelling of the whole thing. What was the process there? Because it had to have been a collaboration, telling your story and then having somebody sort of interpret it and then put it into a stage. Tell us about that process.
And also, what did that feel like, too?
Yes, because there's so much raw emotion on screen.
Good question. So first, I came with Cora Bissett. Cora Bissett is kind of conceived the idea of the theater production and afterwards the film, and she directed both as well. And through Cora, she got connected with Francis Poet, which is the writer of both Adam, the theater production, and the film. And the process was a little more like the three of us had dinner together, and we met, for the first time. We just kind of spoke about my life, different themes about what it could be. They both told me about their lives also and about their work. It was kind of mutual exchange from all of us. And then a few times after, me and Francis only met, and we strictly spoke about my story and my life. She recorded everything. And then she went away for a while and she wrote a first draft. So that I think the process was really easygoing. Everyone was very communicative. I'm very clear about everything. I always, had the opportunity to read the script. And if there was anything upsetting or anything that I didn't see that was clear, or just anything that I didn't see fit for my story or how I want to communicate it, they were very open to hearing, everything really. They were really awesome all the way through, if I'm honest. And yeah, so through that, a few drafts were created, and yeah, we got to where we are, I guess.
Well, I have to say, that collaboration is amazing because, again, like sort of the same observation that, somebody took the story and didn't, like you said, extract. It was something that felt very personal and very first person in the telling, even though, it wasn't necessarily your hand that did it. So I think that speaks a lot to the filmmaker and the staging of the story.
Absolutely.
Jen, do you have other questions?
Yeah, I'm just curious in general, like, I don't know, just going through the process of memorizing, like how this translates from something that feels so personal. It started as a stage performance, correct?
Yeah.
And how that translates into being a film. Was this a stage performance where you were just up there by yourself? Like, was it just a one-person show?
No, it was. So it was produced by National Theatre of Scotland from the very start, and the way it started, it was a stage performance, and it was premiered during the Fringe Festival in Edinburgh, 2017, and it was a two-person performance. It was me and another actress. The first actress was Nishla Kaplan, and then the second time around, when it was brought back to London and New York, it was Rahana MacDonald. And yes, it was a two performers play, and yeah, and well,
so
the both of us
perform those specific, or did you come in later? Were you always performing this stage rendition?
No, so actually, Adam is how I made my professional debut as an actor. So it's how kind of everything started for me, because my performance back in 2012, it was kind of voluntary. I was still at the start of my journey here in the UK, so I left performance on the side, and I kind of started again with Adam in 2017. And yeah, so like the two performers would do, like, as you see in the film, there is the mom, the dad, the mental health nurse, there is like the home office, there are the many characters, Amira, like the ex-girlfriend in Egypt, the manager, all these characters, they were done by us, the two performers on stage, while in the film, actually, they came to life by actual different performers. Each performer did an actual character, but on stage, the both of us, actually, the designer of the stage was absolutely fantastic, because it was designed in a way that you would see it from stage as flat, and then during the performance we would open things to turn it into like a bedroom with a mattress, or into like store with clothes and fashion store, or with chairs to create tables. So it was quite a clever stage. It was a very interactive stage. So through our movements, the two of us, we would bring we would do different characters. So it was kind of like, it was really intriguing. It's done totally different, but somehow it really worked well. So yeah.
I think what's so remarkable about it, because I didn't read about the film before I started watching it, I just turned it on and started watching it, and it's already such a brave and vulnerable story, but the way that either the collaboration, the director, how you chose to keep the filmic version still looking like a theatrical performance, I thought helped it to keep that vulnerability intact, and that like rawness that you really can only experience with a live performance. And I was just curious what the differences were, or maybe similarities were for you telling a personal story on the stage versus then doing it in the film.
Oh no.
I hope we didn't lose them.
No.
Oh no, you're good.
Oh, he's there.
Oh, you hear? Oh, I got afraid. I thought you guys were sorry.
You're with us.
Do you want me to ask you again?
I missed half.
Yes.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I missed half the question. I'm so, yeah, can you please?
No,
Thank you.
That's great. It was like my one burning question, and then I'll stop. I was just so curious with the way that it was done, what it felt like for you telling your own story, which I didn't realize it was you until the end, until I read that and went, oh my gosh, what does that feel like for you to do it on stage versus then to do it in a film, telling your own story, a personal story.
Yeah, I mean, so just talk about that emotional thing of stage versus film, and then watching the film too.
Interesting. Watching the film, that was a whole other journey actually for me. But it's starting with stage. I think during rehearsals, I think I started a little bit like, I think I was a bit naive, thinking, hey, it's me, it's my story, how hard can it be, kind of thing. Well, actually, when I got and learned everything about theater and got involved in my story to reach emotions so I can, relate to them, so I can act them on stage, I went in a very dark place because I don't think I got triggered quite often during rehearsals, and I didn't really have an aftercare plan. I wasn't expecting any of that. So I think halfway through rehearsals, that's when I realized that I had to draw the line. I really had to be to realize that I'm an actor and I'm doing a character that's called Adam. We might have some similarities in character experience, but I can relate and I can use them. That's great, but I cannot be the same person when I go to rehearse or act it. It's gonna be and do that, and that was incredible. And doing the performances on stage, when it came to doing like
so
that,
raw, it's so amazing. So raw, so amazing.
Yeah, I mean, like doing the hourly performance every day, that was kind of a roller coaster between so many emotions, but at the same time I felt like it was healing somehow, because I was able to get involved in my story, go through the healing process, because it ended positively. It ended with me being happy, being Adam. So I think because the ending matched with who I am now, it kind of, I was able to carry that positively and in a healing way. The film was an interesting process because I had to really, it was, I think I had to revisit a lot of the past. And there was no kind of healing, because there was no momentary healing like the stage when you do the performance and you reach the end, and that's the healing part. There was no that with filming, so that the aftercare was a little different, I guess. But it was incredibly hard. Like, I think the film was hard. I think I would say it was harder somehow, even though the theater was longer. I did that for a longer period, and you would think that should have been harder, but I think the film was a harder process for me. It was so intimate as well, because you have just you and the crew, and it's just a set, and you go visit these places and you're on your own. I feel in the stage you are protected by all these people around you. You feel their energy, and you feel like, no matter what, I'm protected by everyone on the stage. And I don't know, it's so intimate while in the film set. I think this is how I would say it.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
It's very enlightening.
No worries at all. I was glad to actually reflect on that a little bit right now.
I just think it's so helpful for anyone that's out there watching that's going to tell like a personal story. Like you said in the film, like it took me 17 years to be able to, type into a computer, is there anyone out there like me? And I think ultimately, like, you're always looking for someone that looks like you so you don't feel alone. And so I think what you've done is absolutely remarkable in helping people to not feel alone.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jenna. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Agreed. So a little lighter question instead of dragging you through that emotional turn.
Sorry, it's the documentarian.
We have a question that says there are a lot of film references in the movie. You have these double meaning things, and I think how much of a film buff are you in real life, and what's your favorite movie right now? And let's just go ahead and put it to both of you since we can. So.
Okay, well, Jenna, would you like to answer? Or
favorite movie?
Okay, so that is I respect who asked that? Grumpy old Gen Xer. I respect that question. It is absolutely it's like asking a chef what their favorite food is, though. It's so hard. So I'll just quickly say my current favorite film which is it's a documentary called The Mole Agent. If you haven't seen it, it's about an 83-year-old man it's a real story about an 83-year-old man that they hired to go undercover at a nursing home. And so it's basically like elderly James Bond. But it's a true story, and it teaches us about how we should love and care for our elderly. But it's just a fantastic film. So
amazing. Oh, cool. I'll check it
Adam?
out. Okay, so I've watched all the movies mentioned in the film Adam, and but I was not as obsessed about Lord of the Rings as it's made out in the film. That was a little bit of Francis Poet playing a little bit with the story, and my favorite. So I gotta say, so I was a film buff before a decade ago, and I kind of dropped out. But I have a good alternative though. I have got a favorite series, and it's Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I'm not ashamed. It's my favorite of all time. Literally, I've been watching it for I think I'm on season 4 right now, and it's like maybe the 20th time I've watched it, if not more. So here you go.
That's
right.
That's my favorite of all
kicking
forever.
Who could turn away from that?
I love that you said that, because I feel like the summer is the perfect time to like revisit old series too. And I have been shamelessly watching Lost and Grey's Anatomy.
Nice.
And like, it's like a 20-year series, but I'm just like playing it on in the background.
You're just churning it out, aren't you?
Yeah.
Well, I don't want the time to escape from us before I ask the proverbial, hey, where can we see your work next? What are you working on and hope to do next in film? And do you have something that you'll bring back to OutSouth? So by alphabetical order, Adam.
Okay. So how can my work? I think I've published a lot of my work through Instagram. It's my favorite social media, my favorite way to share things, just personal or professional.
What's your Instagram account so we can get followers?
Oh, amazing! It's Kashmiri vs Bananas of Life. I'm sorry, it's long. Or Adam Kashmiri. Just write Adam Kashmiri. It'll be fine. It will also come up. Both will come up. That will be fine. But there is a short film coming, and it's called Who We Am. Sorry, and it's with Talisa Garson, and I'm not sure I'm so sorry if I pronounced the last name wrong. But yeah, this it'll be released early 2022. And what else? I've got nothing else. This is all it for me.
All right, so it's time to follow Adam on Instagram. Thank you. And Jenna, next, where is this film going? Where can we find more work? And what are you going to bring back maybe for OutSouth?
Sure. Yeah, I have no problem being incredibly shameless with this. One of the reasons you go to festivals is to make connections, but because we've been in such a virtual landscape, I haven't done a lot of the networking I'd like to. So if you want to distribute my film, hit me up. But aside from that, I'm actually working on my second feature documentary right now. It's in production. It's called Our Time Kitchen, and it's a documentary about two amazing Baltimore chefs, Kat Smith and Kaya Gibeon, as they race the clock to build and open a safe space, shared commercial kitchen for Black and brown women, queer folks, and immigrants to be able to start their own culinary businesses. They're a powerhouse team that have survived so much adversity in the culinary scene, and they are trusting me with their story. So you can follow the progress of that film at Our Time Kitchen Film on Instagram. And if you're interested in Kat and Kaya's story, they need all the support they can get right now. You can follow them at Our Time Kitchen. And then if you're interested in Mom and M, that's Mom and M on Instagram. And you can follow what Elise and Nikki are doing. And I just want to say lastly that if you did watch the film, thank you so much for watching it. And if you're interested in the book that Nikki was writing throughout the film called Demon in the Whitelands, it's available on Amazon and a bunch of other places. It's an incredible book, and I'm not biased when I say that. If you like queer dystopian pop culture novels, or you like Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones, like go buy her book. It's awesome.
Just take a look at the chat there. He said, just want to say a favorite line from Mom and M, there is no gender in heaven, which I thought was a beautiful sentiment too.
Thank you for saying that, Claire. Thank you.
So I'm grateful beyond measure that you brought your stories to OutSouth. And I want to extend an invitation to submit in the future and to ask your filmmaker friends to submit. We love our filmmakers, and we couldn't have a festival without, like Jim said, the Carolina Theater is our sponsor. They're the ones to put this on. We just have a volunteer army out there who watch these films, and we get to sift through and pick out the real plum cherry films, and you guys really have amazing stories, and I encourage everybody to get a ticket and see Mom and Me and Adam.
Thank you so much.
All right, folks. I appreciate your time. We're gonna head out, and we'll see you backstage.